Well, all right. Welcome everybody to Wow Them at Home, Whiskeys of the World's virtual experience. We are very excited to have you here this evening for a very special rum experience with our friends at Diplomatico Rum. Most of you have been with us. We're called Whiskeys of the World. We obviously focus mostly on whiskey, but this is exciting for us to branch out. We did a gin tasting just last week, and now we get to do a deep dive into rum. So we're very excited for this. Of course, we want to make a very special welcome to all of the dads here celebrating Father's Day with us. I'm going to give a few more minutes for people to log in and join. So as we're waiting for everyone to do so, please drop in the chat where you are calling in from. We are, as always, very excited to be able to come together through this format and enjoy some incredible rums. If you've been to a live Whiskeys of the World event in the past, please let us know in the chat. And we do want to let you know we are very excited about this. If you haven't heard yet, Whiskeys of the World, the live events are back. Tickets are on sale right now. We got events coming up in San Francisco, San Jose, New York, Dallas, Atlanta, and Seattle coming up in the fall. So go to whiskeysoftheworld.com for details and tickets. We love being able to do these virtual events. We're going to keep on doing these virtual events because it's really a cool way to get people from all over the country together in one place. We've all found some comfort in the virtual events, but it's really great that this isn't the only way we can gather anymore. So it's exciting for us to be able to do both in person and virtual. Looking at this group, we got folks coming from New York, Miami, Connecticut, LA, friends here in San Francisco. That's where I am. I'm in SF myself, so it's great to have people all over Massachusetts, the Black Pearl and Tortuga. Very good. It's a good place to be drinking rum. I like that. Fantastic. Great to have all these folks here. Give another minute for folks to log in. Pardon me. So for those of you coming in right now, they'll want to let you know the rules of the session, how this is all going to play out. All of you will be muted, just so you know. All guests will be muted, but we highly encourage you to ask questions throughout the seminar using the chat function. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that as well as some of our other moderators. So we would love to be able to see you. So it's always good for us to check in and see where everyone's drinking from. So if you do feel comfortable leaving your video on, please do so. If not, we definitely understand. Now, we do ask, of course, that you are respectful with all questions and comments in the chat function. It helps to make this a great experience for everybody involved. We don't want to have to boot you from the chat, but we will if you don't follow the rules of respect. So we've never had a problem to this day. Please don't be our first. Tip for all you guys, please put the Zoom into speaker view instead of gallery so you can focus on our presenter here tonight. We do have a lot of information to go through. If you do have a question, again, put it in the chat. We will do our best to answer it during tasting. And so you know this tasting is being recorded. Always have to have that legal notice before we get too deep. Other thing I want to make sure you do have, please make sure you have water with you. We've got 6 different rums and 2 cocktails that we're going to be going through tonight in a short amount of time. It's going to be aggressive. We want to make sure you stay hydrated. Water is going to be great to both rinse out the glass in between tastes and, of course, keep yourself hydrated. For me, I pour a splash of water in between each taste, swirl it around, drink that water. It does double duty right there. So that's the easiest way to do it. What I would like to have you do right now as well for the cocktails is if you can, I'll give you a minute to do so, is go put a glass or two, a rocks glass, in your fridge or freezer. Help chill that glass before we make the cocktail, especially the second cocktail is going to need a chilled glass. The first one will have ice in it. The second one we're going to stir and then pour it into a chilled glass. So now is the perfect time for you to go put a glass in the freezer ready for that cocktail. We'll give you a second as I go through some of these rules. You'll be able to hear me. I'll talk louder as you're running through your kitchen, if that makes it easier for you to go run that glass into the freezer. All right, so keeping it going. If you like this experience, I hope you do, and you want to come back for more, like always, we do offer a very special promo code for those who are joining with us this evening. That promo code is Cheers20. So that'll help you purchase tickets for $65 instead of $85, $20 off for our upcoming tasting events. That promo code is good for 24 hours from now. So after you're done here, or maybe tomorrow morning, that's okay too, go ahead and sign up for these tastings. Use the promo code Cheers20. July 22nd experience, August 12th, we have a run blending experience and a peated Scotch experience coming up on August 26th. Very, very excited for this. So most of you hopefully have put that glass in the freezer. Pardon me again. And we're going to give you a quick overview on what rum is. I'm just going to give this, but we are going to go into so much more detail with my special guest that's here today. So rum is a liquor made by fermenting and then distilling sugarcane, molasses, or sugarcane juice. Rum comes from sugar as a base. For those of you who've been to my whiskey tastings, you know whiskey comes from grain. Whiskey is made from a grain or a combination of grains. Rum is from sugarcane, either the straight cane juice or molasses, which is the byproduct of the sugarcane refining process. The distillate, crystal clear, would then, if it's going to be aged, goes into oak casks. Now, while most rums are produced in the Caribbean, in North and South American countries, it's produced really all over the world. Any other sugar producing country, in the Philippines, in India, all over the world. In fact, here in the United States, we were producing a lot of rum in the early days of the US. So very simply, rum's made from sugar, 100% cane product, raw cane juice, white, brown cane syrup, any of those different samples. We're going to talk in more detail about that. We're going to go into a lot of tasting here today. My encouragement, and very, very important, we've got, like I said, we got a lot of rums here for us to taste. This is a full ounce. We don't need to rush through that. I highly encourage you to only pour a quarter to, up to a half of that sample there for your tasting. We're doing it just a tasting, just enough for a couple small sips before we move on. There's no need to run through it. Even for professionals like me and my guests here today, that's pretty aggressive to have to go through all of those full ounces. So just a small amount. That also gives it so you can come back at the end of the tasting and spend some time and savor the ones that were your favorites. All right. So our great guest today, Diplomatico Rum representative Manny Pena, is going to be joining. He's going to guide us through the tasting, samples 1 through 6. And at the end, my friend, our mixologist, Karl Steuck, is going to guide us through, making 2 traditional whiskey cocktails, but this time using rum. So that's what samples 7 and 8, which are in your tasting kit, as well as the simple syrup and the extra pipette that has a little bit of that green liquid in there, which we're going to let you know about when we get to that point. So with no further ado, it's time for us to jump right into this. Your glasses are in the freezer. Your samples are in front of you. The cocktails are waiting. I can see we've got Captain Jack Sparrow joining us as well as one of our guests. It's fantastic. But most importantly, Manny Pena is here with us. Manny, welcome. Great to see you, my man.
Hello. How's everybody doing this Thursday evening? Thank you for letting us get into your house and learn and share a little bit about our rum company and to learn in general about rum. I welcome you from New York City. If you hear the sirens, they're going to be very indicative that I am home, as tropical as this background looks. But I'm very excited to share with everybody, especially that this is a whiskey crowd. This is a whiskey connoisseur crowd, and to be able to explain to them and show them how special Diplomatico is and how it doesn't have too much to envy to those great spirits of the world. I think that's the mission today. It's to demystify rum and make it the special liquid that it is. We have 6 of our best spirits in front of you. We are going through a geeking experience of Diplomatico. You are getting like a really deep dive. This is further than what the distributor trainings are. This is opening the distillery's gates and letting you in what we do, how we do it, and most importantly, for you to understand the straight spirits that we have here today. But let's start a little bit about where we are, who we are. But we're gonna do that by doing rum. I think like that's the first thing we should do. It's to pour your number 1, so we could start getting the juices flowing as I start, because I don't think it's fair to talk about rum with no rum in your mouth.
It's definitely true. We got to start sipping before we learn way too much, right?
Yeah. And so I'm gonna propose a little toast to all of you, and for normalcy, and for back to normal, and I'm soon to see everybody's faces. Cheers. We're gonna start with Receta Exclusiva, however you do it. And as I take that sip, I tell you that we are a family-owned company. That it was founded in 1959. Seagrams was looking to build the biggest, baddest distillery in all South America, and they did for many reasons settle here. One of them was the quality of the water. The area it's called by the natives la miel, the honey, because the water was so sweet and soft that this is where they decided to. The fertility of the soil, where we are 200 miles from the Caribbean, longest Caribbean coastline. We are right where the Andes Mountains start. We are within the Amazonian territory, so we have like 90% humidity. We have really hot days throughout the year, about over 100 degrees, and at night it goes down to around 55. So this temperature fluctuation is great for cane growing and for aging spirits. So as you mentioned, rums are made from sugar cane. We're gonna especially talk about Venezuelan rum today. Venezuelan rum, it's part out of two DOCs in the world. One DOC is the DOC of Martinique, which it makes your agricole rum and your French style agricole rum, and then you have the DOC of Venezuela. DOC of Venezuela requires all the ingredients to be from Venezuela. We could not import any molasses, any juice, anything out of like to in order to make our products. If you see all our counterparts, fine rums from Barbados, Mr. Steele, they are so adamant about being a Barbados rum, but none of the molasses that they use is from Barbados. It's Mexican molasses, Dominican molasses. It's so they do have a style of how they make, but with ingredients that don't belong to the island. So for us to be part of the DOC, needs to be cane juice and molasses or from Venezuela. Needs to be aged for a minimum of 2 years. So if you compare it to a DOC of Martinique, as soon as it comes off the still, you can put in the bottle and call white rum, right? For us, it needs to be aged for a minimum of 2 years in wood cask, and it needs to be bottled between 40 and 50% alcohol, which is
So there won't be really any white rums from Venezuela, is what you're saying. I haven't seen many. So they're all going to be an aged rum, correct?
Even yes, that's correct. Anything below 2 years, it's classified as a liqueur, even if it doesn't have any sugar. It's called a dry liqueur, licor seco. So for us to make a white rum, we actually let it age, and it's probably the color of exclusiva. We run it through charcoal filtration to remove the color and kind of soften up the spirit, and we actually leave this one with a higher percentage at 47. We're not getting too caught up in those details, but that's the only way that we could make a white spirit. I want to touch, as we mentioned, the two raw ingredients. One, it's high quality molasses. And why I'm mentioning high quality molasses, because all of us in this room probably have heard the term blackstrap, right, Josh?
I have, but why don't you go ahead and define blackstrap for those of us who are new? We got a lot of people who are new to rum here, so go ahead and define that.
Absolutely. Let's start with the raw ingredient. Let's start with cane juice. So we press the cane, we obtain this juice that is like a greenish tone, and if we were to cook that up like the same way you do maple water and you turn into maple syrup, you will turn this liquid into a syrupy substance where the water has been evaporated, and what you ending up it's with a high concentration of sugars. That will be what we call cane honey. And this is cane honey, it's what compared like a solution like molasses, but with sugar content about 80%, 80. When we say high, like rich molasses or high quality molasses as the ones that we use, they have a sugar content of about 60%, 60. When you talk about blackstrap, we will be talking, it's the bottom of the barrel. It's about 15%, 1 5, the least amount of sugar and the highest amount of carbon allowed by the law, like general law. If you actually cook that solution a little more and a couple more molecules of carbon are added to that solution, it's deemed not potable for human consumption. So it's actually used for animal feed. So that's where actually they have to stop.
It's the
So we are
lowest level of consumption.
exactly. So our molasses have 4 times the sugar of that, and our cane honey way more than that. So to begin with, we started with raw ingredients, which separate us from the rest of the rum producers. Something after we have these raw ingredients, they never touch each other. They kept separate. Molasses are fermented with our own yeast strain. For those geeks, it's Y193. It's a Saccharomyces strain that it was developed by Seagrams in the 50s and is responsible for a lot of the aromas and a lot of the characteristics of our particular alcohols. So the molasses ferment for 24 hours. The cane honey ferments for 48 hours develop all the like those sugars to be eaten by the yeast and develop like those rich flavors, but not ultra long fermentations like funky fermentations like Jamaica, which you know they 2 months, a month, depending on the weather.
Very long fermentation, yeah.
Our fermentations are very clean, very controlled in open tank fermenters, which actually have serpentines where we could run water to lower the temperature and extend the life of the yeast. So it's like open fermenters, but temperature control, which it gives us a really good advantage as far as like keeping the cleanliness and the style of the house. After these products ferment, one for 24 and one for 48 hours, we proceed to distill in different methods of distillation. Lucky for us, in our kits today, we have all three of those methods of distillation. So this is what's going to make this process unique for us to taste and for us to understand Diplomatico and rum in general a lot better. So after we tasted Receta Exclusiva, I wanna. What's your consensus about like how you tasted there? And I'm gonna show you how I taste, and I'm gonna tell you why I taste in a certain manner before we pick to the next one.
Yeah, why don't we go? Why don't you go ahead and do that for us? So let's, because we're going through this first one right here. Tell us a little bit what makes the Reserva Exclusiva, what makes it unique, and what is your tasting process? I know I have mine for whiskey that's very different, but I'd love to know what your approach is.
Well, Reserva Exclusiva, it's 9 out of every 10 bottles that we make. There's no other more important bottle for us out of the whole portfolio than Reserva Exclusiva. This is the king. This is what paid for braces on my kids. This is really what this is what everybody knows and loves. Like 9 out of every 10 bottles that we produce, it's this bottle of Reserva Exclusiva. So this is aged for 12 years in bourbon cask. And when we're talking about the angel share in Venezuela, it's crazy. It's about 6 to 7% a year. So when we say in 12 years, this product, when it was filled in the barrel, think the barrel was 100 liters, just to manage small numbers, and we losing 60% of the volume of that. We're only ending up with 40 liters to make this. And this is where you see this great concentration of flavor in Reserva Exclusiva. And the way that I like to taste that normally, like the world normally tastes when they are tasting rums or other spirits, they just tilt their head back, put a little bit in the front, and then swallow. Our master distiller was like, Manny, you gotta let them use them out. And I'm like, okay, so how do we do that? Besides getting all the organoleptic factors by covering the glass with our taking small whiffs, getting more familiar with the actual spirits, and then we tilt our head back. So we're gonna tilt our head back. We're gonna use the glass to drop liquid as far as back as we possibly can, almost like to our jawline. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna close our mouth, let the juice drip to like wet the whole mouth, and then we're gonna swallow. So we're gonna go.
That is absolutely popping out a lot more flavor than my just standard approach. I'm getting, for me, it's like a roasted orange marmalade. I mean, that I'm really getting on there. It's that nice bitter orange, but really jammy. A lot of brown sugar on that one. Bright, lively, a little touch of baking spice as well.
And a lot drier because you're getting a lot more pepperiness in the back. When you are just tasting in the front, all you're getting is like pretty much the sweetness and the fruit of the rum. But when you are doing this, you are actually tasting in different parts of the mouth. You are getting the pepperiness in the back. You're getting the mid palate very pleasant, very long lasting. This is where, Exclusiva, with their
It's a great sipper.
complexity of this, like really all alcohols, like, round up your mouth, and still I'm talking and I'm still salivating and
Yeah.
pulling those great delicious
100%.
flavors. And this is where like Exclusiva shines up. Like, you taste this compared to any other rum producer, and they are in trouble because they don't have the chemical structure that we have. And jumping into the next spirit, it's what's gonna start giving us the secret. So we pretty much just tasted the perfect balanced rum to our style of our house, which is Receta Exclusiva. We're gonna go into taste number two, and number two is our first rum that we have an opportunity to taste out of the Diplomatico line, 100% melazas. So these are going to be, this is a rum that is made 100% melazas, that is fermented for 24 hours with our own yeast strain, aged for 4 years. So this is showing you the expression of this particular still, which is a the barbet still. Let me see. I'm actually confusing you guys.
Yeah, we're doing the batch kettle
We're doing
distillery
number
collection.
two, which is the batch kettle,
Yeah.
which is the batch kettle number one. That's why I'm confused with the number. So number two, in the line of the distillery collection, it's so we the specimen number two, which I mistakenly said that it was molasses because I thought it was the other one, but this one is going to be 100% cane honey, and that batch kettle, it's a beautiful discontinued distillation still. So it's a big, like big pot still. We're talking about like 40,000 gallons. So big charge. This is a giant still that is attached to a small column, which we call our batch kettle hybrid still. This was actually making Canadian whiskey. This is where we start getting a little bit of the Seagram's history. This was making Crown Royal. This is where Crown Royal is actually.
So that came, that was the big one that came from. Yeah, I mean, so it's Crown Royal, it's a big Canadian still that they brought down.
Yeah, and they're gonna, like, the toys are just gonna keep getting cooler and cooler.
Yeah.
So this still, it's a 40,000 liter drum attached to a small column that rectified the gases and makes this semi-heavy alcohol. This is actually aged for 6 years. So the number two that we are tasting right now, the batch kettle rum, it's aged for 6 years and it's bottled at 47%. So
a little higher proof.
Yeah, and all the distillery collection are going to be at 47. So we have that common denominator. They're just going to change on age and raw material. So this is the first one that we are tasting. It's out of cane honey, aged for 6 years, aged in former bourbon cask. What do you think about that one, Josh?
I love this one. This one, right off the bat, I mean, obviously it's just a nice, more vanilla bean kind of a note. I'm getting like the not just a kind of a base, like a standard vanilla flavor, which is always going to be there, but I'm getting a much more of the earthy vanilla bean. And I was getting a lot more of a floral note on this one, like deep, like roses and lavender kind of floral note for me on this, which I was surprised because I've tasted this a lot. And I'm really not, I've not focused on that flavor before. I love using these in cocktails and great for sipping, but really that was the thing that hit me right off the bat, like earthy vanilla bean and the bright floral notes.
And I want you to think of where, like, all of us as a group, to start visualizing where these different alcohols are sitting in the mouth. So when you are tasting them, where they are hitting you. So if we are swishing through the whole mouth, but they don't have coverage in the whole mouth, they only have a certain frequency. So this, being our semi-heavy alcohol, has like a medium coverage. It's not a light spirit, but it's not a heavy spirit. So this one kind of like sit in the mid palate. So by re-sipping this, feel where it sits. It kind of like coats your tongue, and it gives you all these beautiful characteristics. And I happen to find every time that I'm doing like fairs with whiskey drinkers, whiskey drinkers tend to gravitate towards out of the three distillery collections. They really like the batch kettle. It's
Definitely.
very pleasant.
I poured through a lot of this at the whiskey bar that I was running. So people, the great thing about that place was we had a cigar lounge as well. So we really have been seeing so much growth in the rum and cigar combinations, and this one was very popular for that.
Oh,
Well, the first
you
two,
got
but
to.
really though, every Diplomatico I've had, people have wanted to do the cigar pairings with. So we can go more into that in a little bit. I do
Yeah.
want to. I mean, just also want to remind people, guys. Please throw questions. Any questions you have, throw them in the chat. So we're watching those. If you do have questions as we go along, we'd love to be able to get to those. We're going to keep on moving through these fantastic tastes that we have in the meantime. But this one is you guys have had a few of these kind of little smaller batch collections that you put out. And this one in particular, it's a hybrid still, is what you said. It's a giant pot with a small column attached, you said, right?
Yeah, think of the shape of the bottle of a Castilla, like fat like that. So it's a longer tank and attached to a tiny little column of like 10 plates to rectify the gases. And that single charge, it takes 48 hours for those 42,000 liters to go through. So it's pretty insane to think the almost industrial, but making alcohol of this quality of this continuous distillation. It's pretty gnarly.
Yeah. Now you guys use, I mean, I'm not, you probably have a few other things, but is it pretty much all former bourbon barrels across the board, or do you throw in some other barrels in the mix?
Yeah, I mean, Josh, we with the barrel crisis that everybody and their mother is making bourbon. It's so hard and so hard. We have now an inventory of around 600,000 barrels, and we are buying from pretty much every producer around the world. Some of them are ex malt, some of them are like ex whiskeys, but
Yeah.
I would say 100% of them are former bourbon.
At one point, but then you guys are reusing them, reconditioning. Are you doing any retoasting on the barrels as well, or pretty much just kind of make sure that it has structural integrity and get it back into service?
We like if they have leaks, we know how to repair them. There's a cooperage area, but we don't retoast. Especially for when we get like boots for Pedro Jimenez and stuff like that. You want that little bit of juice.
Yeah. No, yeah, but those. But even like the recondition.
Yeah, no, but we do have our cooperage area where we recondition and fix it, but we don't retoast.
Okay, very cool.
So
nice to be able to have that. One question I do want to ask you before let's move on to number 3. But as we do so, it is kind of unique. It's 94 proof. It's not very typical for rum, but that's a specific point you guys chose for 4 of the ones that we're actually tasting here today. Rum is all over the place, but is there a reason why do you like the 94 proof? And do you ever recommend adding a couple drops of water like we do often with whiskey?
Well, I think I have tasted all of them, and coming from 65,
yeah,
from 65 to like, and I think like we find that our alcohols at 47 have the aliveness. They are live enough. They are vibrant. They are but not harsh. Because I think when we have an opportunity today, when we taste the sample number 6, that one is cast strength untouched with water, and you see how elegant it is. So, but yeah,
47%. So let's see. Well, let's keep on moving here. Let's do our number 3, the Barbet.
Yeah, and Barbet. I saw the question somebody popped. It's a French still that Seagram's brought in from France, and it was designed by Emily Barbet, which he is a genius of the distillation. He's like one of the fathers of modern distillation, and certainly the father of French distillation. His contributions to Armagnac and Cognac over the years. So this specific still, it's a still that it's so special, and we say it's a column still, And there's so many column stills around the world that we don't understand how special this specific still is. This is a still that normally normal stills have about 52 plates. This still think about 60%, so a little higher than the middle. They remove about 10 to 15 plates. And those plates, that area, it creates a reflux. And that reflux is actually he designed a refrigeration unit that it goes attached to this column, and this is in order to make continuous distillation alcohols, but preserving aldehydes, preserving a lot of the congeners. So
So you're
making like
removing plates. I'm going to show
yeah,
something. I'm going to put something on the screen for some folks who aren't necessarily familiar with a column versus pot still here, just so they can see, and you can as well. Kind of just a little idea of the difference between a pot still that you see on the left and the column still on the right. So for those of you who aren't really following what we're talking about, the pot still there, you can see it's literally a big pot in the bottom where you put your fermented mash in there, your wort, and then it heats up, the alcohol rises into that gooseneck or swan neck, and then it's recondensed through the other small column that you see on the right. Now the column still has a whole bunch of plates right there in the middle, and the liquid keeps going down and the alcohol is evaporated and then recondensed, evaporated, recondensed, getting it to a higher level of purity, essentially is what you're doing. So there's just a little visual, and you can look this up in other places, but I wanted to make sure people weren't too lost in what we were talking about.
no, but it's important that you saying that, and please leave those the graphics on. So
sure.
think of the column still as a washing machine. So you are putting dirty clothes, and throughout the cycle, spinning, rinse, wash, whatever. At the end, you end up with really clean clothes.
Yeah,
that's perfect. That's perfect if you are making vodka. If you're making vodka, you want to get the grain as far as out from the alcohol. You want to remove all the dirty, all the flavors. All you want is clean alcohol. For us, we don't want to remove all the dirty. We want some semi clean clothes. We want some tie dye there. That's why we remove some of the cycles, and that cycle actually they add another refrigeration unit in order to preserve a certain kinds of alcohols which normally are lost during a normal distillation. So if you run this molasses mash through a column still to make vodka, and you taste the Barbet spirit, it's day and night, because the Barbet it still has congeners, still has aldehydes, still has like that fruitiness, like that beauty of it. And this is where we have right now on our number three. Number three is a great example of our capabilities. So this is 100% molasses. This is aged only for 4 years. So this is like the impact of wood. It's there, but it's, I would say, minimal. And here you could really see how much fruit and how much joy this spirit has coming out of this barbette still. I think it's impressive, and I think when you show this and as a column still spirit, it's glorious. I think it's so good and so well done, and I'm so proud of it.
To me, it tastes like if I coated a pineapple with brown sugar and threw it on the grill. I'm getting definitely like that's what I'm tasting right here. It's like a brown sugar, caramelized brown sugar pineapple.
I'm glad, and I want you to where does it sit? So you see, it has a good mouth feel, but as it's leaving, I think this is responsible for the pepperiness and some of the body. So think of exclusiva, that pepperiness when it was leaving.
Yeah.
Remember when we tasted the first example that it was like that? I told you that it was a blend. So exclusiva is a blend of all three spirits. Exclusiva is a blend of the Barbet. Exclusiva is a blend of the batch Kettle, and exclusiva is a blend of the next still that we're gonna go into in different proportions. But I want to start giving you the idea of like that pepperiness, and with the batch Kettle, that mid mid palate tongue coat feeling situation going in there. But what do you see a remarkable difference between the number 2 and number 3 between the batch kettle and the barbette?
Definitely noticing a difference. I mean, is it massive? I'm not gonna say it's huge, but it's definitely there. I'm just getting a lot more fruit and a lot less like the wood, kind of the lingering wood tannins I got more of on number 2 that just kind of remain on the side and back palate, those kind of bitter wood tannins that I do love, but I'm getting less of that on number 3 for sure.
But I think like that is you are like banging the nail over the head over and over, because this is where when we say the term complexity, complexity, and it's widely used by wine people who know they don't know what they're talking about. And the best definition for complexity to me is the time that a substance gets to ride your palate. The time that a substance gets to ride your palate. And I say it again, the time that a substance gets to ride your palate. If you put vodka in your mouth, you're gonna get the burn, you're gonna get the heat, and it's gonna go because there's no complexity. Those alcohols, the molecular chains of those alcohols aren't there. They have not developed. When the alcohol is in the barrel, when that barrel is expanding and contracting, those molecular chains they build stronger. So this actual alcohol, as it's getting woodier, it's developing that complexity, and it's that time that it sits in the mouth that it gets extended by how much longer sits in wood. So that's why when you taste something that is like 4 years old versus taste something that is 20 years old from the same house, you're gonna have the like a more lasting taste in because the body cannot get rid of it.
Yeah.
When we put any alcohol in the mouth, what's happening physiologically? It's not water. It's not water soluble. The body feels that it's getting attacked. So sensors send a signal to the brain that the body's being poisoned, actually being poisoned. Your
Yeah.
salivary glands, they get activated and you start salivating more, trying to get rid of this substance as fast as you possibly can. And depending on the weight of this substance that is in your mouth, that's what is going to take your body to get rid of it. So the longer that something is truly aged, not like 23 on the label, but God knows what is, that's not going to sit in the palate as long as something like our products, which are like really aged. And you don't see age statements on any of our bottles because we feel we have a great advantage with the weather where we are. That our 12-year-old, according to Seagrams, it's 1 year in Venezuela, it's 3 years in Scotland.
So that's actually, I'm glad you actually brought that up because that's something, there's a lot of confusion between whiskeys and with rums. And we're not going to be naming any other brands right here, but the fact is that whiskeys throughout the world have a, legal standard of if there's an age statement on a bottle, that's telling you the youngest drop in there aged at least that long. And with rum, it is the laws are softer. The laws are not as specific. Each country can have their own different standards of it. But with rums, sometimes when you see an age statement on a rum bottle, it's just telling you that there's some amount of that old rum in there, and not that all of it is at least that old. So that's
that is so, I will say, wrong and deceiving, and this is why like people respect so much whiskey versus rum, because if anybody will dare to put a 23 on any single malt bottle, and people know that it's a 6-year-old with a little bit of 23, they will be out of business.
You legally can't do it. They would be shut down by, the Scotch Whisky Association wouldn't let it be bottled. The TTB here in the US wouldn't let you bottle it.
But with rum, that's not the case. So
yeah.
That's where you have to be, more knowledgeable and not as gullible, because rum, it's been run by pirates for years. So
that's true, man. It's absolutely true. It is. This is the pirate's drink, so it runs by the pirate code, which
I think
is a little loose.
I think, but us being part of the DOC and us with our commitment to quality, and like for us to be the leader in the premium rum category. Like the largest market for rum in the world is France. We all know that, and we are the number one premium selling rum in France.
That's huge.
So
That's actually funny because France is actually the number one. They drink more single malt Scotch per capita than any other country per capita. So you think of France as being wine and cognac. And so we are actually we were asked, we are on number 3 now. We are about to start number 4. So we are just about to move to number 4. We haven't poured number 4 yet. So you're welcome to. So we had a question there on where we are. But yeah, it's fascinating. France, you think of as wine and cognac, and they drink rum and Scotch. I mean, that's what they like to drink there. You know, Spain likes gin and tonics. It's funny, you don't even know what it is that these other countries like to drink. Let's move. Let's keep doing. Let's go to number 4 right now, and we'll keep this discussion going if that's all right with you.
Yeah, and I think like this is as whiskey as we're gonna move on today from the historical component, and I know this is very, very, very dear to your heart. What I'm gonna tell you, the number 4, it's our pot still, which is the 100% cane honey fermented for 48 hours, and this is aged for a total of 8 years in this magical stills. They were from the Stratila distillery, which you are very familiar,
That's
Mr.
right.
Shivas. Mr. Shivas. So this stills were brought in from Scotland, from the Stratila distillery, which, as you know, the Stratila distillery burned in 1987, and like pretty much they lost all their ancient equipment. And this is one of the surviving stills of the Stratila distillery, who are now adapted to making the best rum in the world. I think I'm very, 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 very proud.
Well, they replace their stills every about 30, 35 years. So the Stratila distillery has been around since 1786. It's one of the oldest, if not the oldest, operating distilleries in the Speyside region. So for those you don't know, I showed this because you can't even buy the single malt from there anymore, but it is the heart of the Chivas Regal blend, and a beautiful distillery that I've been to a number of times. So I love the fact that these are Stratila. If you drink any Chivas Regal before 1987, you drink Scotch whiskey that came off the same stills that we're about to drink with this rum right here. That's cool to me. I love that.
Yeah, this is, the stills turned this year 188 years old, which that's amazing for us. Like they are literally, this are the charges on this are about 450 gallons, and it takes around like 27 hours to produce to 400 gallons. It's not a lot of mash when
they're not huge stills, because the ones that they have there today are still the same. They design them to be exact replicas of their old stills. So it's fascinating that you guys have those. And I'm actually really curious how you're able to maintain them, because in Scotland, generally speaking, they do replace stills every 30 to 40 years because copper does tend to degrade. So I'm wondering, for you guys having these really old stills, how you're able to maintain them so well.
I cannot tell you, but they look amazing. I'm happy to share pictures with you, Josh.
Yeah, I'm actually looking through because I've got pictures of the newer ones there from my when I was visiting.
But something that when they were adapted, that it's interesting to understand, it's the geometry of them. When you pull the graph of your still there, it came from the gooseneck essentially to the top of the next still. This stills, the way that they are designed for the rum to get a very specific, they actually go from the top to the bottom of the retort, of the retorta. Let me see if I could, by maybe getting them close, you could see here. May you understand? Closer.
Yep.
Yeah. So you see the angle from the main still that it goes
Yeah,
to
that's a
the
deep
to
neck.
the bottom of it. If you
Mhm.
look for any of the Jamaican stills, they go from top to top, never with this angle, which creates a reflux, and it's responsible for a lot of the weight of this specific spirit. So even that you could make an alcohol from a pot still from cane honey, we are the only ones with this design on the neck to create this reflux that is responsible for the specific spirit that we produce.
I'll show this real quick. This is actually the stills at Struth Isla right now today. It's a little bit blurry, but that's a bit of what they sort of look like right now.
That's
So
amazing.
that's kind of the base of them. That's Struth Isla today. So there we go.
But those look prettier than mine. Mine are older. Mine are
They're a
like
little shinier.
darker and a little banged up, but they still doing the job. So by tasting this, please
Very bright.
just enlighten me.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, big. I mean, I'm getting a really bright orange oil on this one too, along with that same kind of nice, deep roasted sugar note. So kind of a like if you there's a brightness. It's like if you could make cotton candy out of brown sugar. I'm getting like that type of unsugar note, from it. But orange peel, like an really nice orange oil, not the same jammy fruit, but that like really bright orange oil I'm getting on this one.
I can't
But a
wait for
nice roast, nice
you and
kind
I
of
to do,
coffee roast.
you and I to do a TV show like holding hands, me holding a bottle of Diplo and you holding a bottle of whiskey, and like
Let's do it.
walking down the beach, walking down the beach.
Done. Absolutely. Let's do it, man.
Sunset with Josh in my
Yeah,
head.
we're starting a podcast.
So, but I think when you taste this, it's special. But when you actually taste all three together, and for those who have an opportunity who didn't drink sample number one, uh, I will ask you to actually go back and like after you taste number three and understand the number one is a combination, the perfect combination of one. Number one is a combination of two, three, and four in the perfect expression, and then we'll jump into the next spirit, which is going to be number five. But
Yep.
if you have an opportunity, like taste a little bit of a sip of exclusiva, and then see where all the three alcohols sit back again with you, because I think it's a great exercise. I think like there's much more appreciation for exclusiva after now than when we were taking just sips from the front of the mouth. You're gonna see the spirit a lot different. You're not gonna look at this as you know the sweeter of the line. I think you're gonna see this as the most balanced of the line. I think this is
So number
where
five, we're moving to number five right now, correct? The single vintage.
we are going to move to number five. But I want if you guys have an opportunity to taste number one again
Oh, okay.
before we jump into
Yeah.
number five.
Let's do it.
And try to look for those three alcohols that we just tasted in our brain. Where they sitting in the mouth? And if you could find them in that blend. Judy, number one is a brilliant blend. Thank you.
True.
Thank you.
Number one, definitely. I mean, there's a richness to number one, and that is something how each one stands alone, and the way they come together, they really there's a richness, a deep. I mean, a texture on number one that I'm not
and
getting.
and higher age, because when we're talking
Oh,
about the components in number one are 12-year-old. The in the single the distillery collection, they only go up to 8 years old. The pot still is 8 years old.
right.
The barbet is 4 years old, and the batch kettle is 6 years old. And as we are presenting to you, but when they go to exclusiva, they are all 12-year-old alcohols, and this is where you see those nuances that are like even richer, and all
It
the
really
flavors,
builds
all
up.
the flavors, all the flavors. Let me like repeat that to you, are natural. All that vanilla, all that cinnamon, all that clove, all that licorice, all that you are getting there is just alcohol, wood, and thyme.
No,
Nothing
no
else.
additives.
There's no additives to this.
Yeah, good.
Like it's you know it's important to understand the these flavors are from the raw materials and from the unique methods of distillations that we have. And I think we are ready to jump into numero cinco.
Let's do it. So single vintage, all distilled in 1 year, right?
Yes,
Very
and
good.
only made in special years. So it's not that we make single vintage every year because it's part of the the portfolio. No, single vintage is only made in years where we those 600,000 barrels that we have with specific characteristics develop, and we see certain lots when we do that yearly survey. The certain lots are maturing specifically, like really good, like that year, the weather, the everything lining up from inception. The first vintage that we did was 97, and that was Venezuela only product. Those bottles, if you could find any of them, those bottles are going upwards of $5,000 by collectors. The single vintage 1997, which was never exported to the United States or Europe. Then we launched it for the US 2000. Europe launched 2001. Then we did 2004 and 2005. So not every year, very limited release. This is 100% the sample number 4. So it's 100% those Stratila pot stills cane honey, which are aged for 12 years, 12 consecutive years in former bourbon casks. After we age in former bourbon casks, we finish this in delicious oloroso sherry casks, which are over 30 years old. So very mature oloroso cask, which it brings, I think, the brininess, the this is where exclusiva. I think it's like caramel
So
taffy. I think
this
like
is what I was going to say. My first note was straight up. If you've ever had a dark chocolate sea salt caramel
yeah,
candy,
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
sea
yeah,
salt
yeah,
caramel covered in dark chocolate, that's what
yeah,
this is. Right. That was my
yeah.
first note. Before you even said Oloroso, I'm like, I'm getting the sea salt. There is absolutely a minerality to this one
I,
that is not on
I,
the others.
I couldn't, and it's not in any other, and it's not in any other spirit. I think this is the only Diplomatico product that has salt to it.
Well,
It has
yeah,
a little bit of, it has
straight minerality on that.
that salinity of the Oloroso, and that minerality really breaks down
Uh,
like the flavors and the complexity of it, like the sugars, and it's like it kind of like split your tongue uh, in my head in half.
yeah.
Because in one side you're tasting like something very like rich and ripe, and then the other side you're tasting something almost like port qualities, almost like fig, like
Yeah. Dried
in
fruit,
that sense.
figs, dates, raisins, dark
And
chocolate
and
covered raisins.
and this is at 43%. So now we are taking off from the like this is anytime that somebody tells me I don't drink rum, I'm a whiskey drinker. I'm like,
Oh,
shut the
this.
fuck up. Here, try some single vintage. And sorry for the f bomb, but
Yeah,
truly, it's truly.
we're on number
I'm
five. It's going to happen.
I'm super proud of the
I will tell you right off the bat, like there's a lot of rums out there I've been able to introduce to whiskey drinkers, and it's the ones that really are heavily aged. But this one in particular, having that sherry hit, it is something that anybody who's a Scotch, like a Macallan and Glendronach, Aberlour, any of those kind of Scotches that you like that sherry bomb on, this fits right in there.
Yeah, like
This
the
with a cigar.
The Dalmore lovers, the
Yeah.
Dalmore lovers,
Dalmore
like
lover,
people
yes.
love Dalmore because Dalmore out of the Scotch, it's probably the one who uses the most older sherry cask. They have a relationship from
Yeah.
1900s with Gonzalez Baez, where they have access to the best barrels in the world. We have a relationship with Sandeman for over 50 years, where we have, I was mentioning the Oloroso cask is 30 years old. But when I'm like, not to discount our friends from Macallan's, but their big selling point is that they are in sherry cask, but they don't tell you what kind of sherry. And a lot of the times it's you know undrinkable sherry that they are just putting to
It's
cure the
Yeah, and
barrels
it's
so
not
they
just
can
them. It's
order whiskey.
most of them are going to be seasoned casks. Glendronach is one that I refer to all the time that I love. But if you can get a hold of a Glendronach bottle from the 1990s, that was aged in 40-year-old sherry casks, not 2 to 3-year-old sherry casks, essentially done for seasoning. And that's what it's done. It's they season casks with sherry now because of the demand for sherry aged scotches and other spirits. So it's really cool to be able to get old sherry casks, very different coming from a Solera that's been used for decades rather than a couple of years.
It's a different it's a totally different thing. It's like having a a Toyota Corolla from 2017 and having a a Corolla from the 80s, like six shift, like no rust. Like it's
You got
different.
a nice. If you got a Primo Corolla from the 1980s, man, you'd be bumping that thing down the street. It better have a good sound system.
Yep. So it's in this sense, it's important to understand that the raw ingredients are great, but the quality of the sherry, it's elevating this to another level. I
This is
think like
something
this is
special.
uh
Can you
to
tell us
me the
what is
day
the?
they fire me, I'm gonna.
Oh, I was going to say, what is this one? The single vintage '05, if we can find it. What does this one retail for, approximately?
It's
Range.
it's under 120 bucks.
Oh,
It's under
great.
120 bucks. It's I think it's I when the Venezuelans get rid of me, I in the secret working for other brands, I'll be drinking this.
Yeah. Hey,
No,
man,
I love
it's
Tequila and I love single vintage. I think like in my personal life, like I don't mix this with anything. I once
oh,
the my master distiller, we did like in Vegas, we did a amazing old fashioned with like really old Pedro Jimenez with single vintage with Carpano, like vintage Carpano. And but I think this is just you don't need water. You don't need. I think at 43, this doesn't have enough heat that you need to mess
no,
too
this
much with
thing.
it.
This is I want this in a big snifter, or really not just a solid Glencairn, and just to sip on this. Yeah, the only thing I would pair this with is maybe a cigar.
Chocolate and
Chocolate.
chocolate.
Great.
Chocolate. For those of you who love chocolate, write me a note. Happy to mail you a little bar of Venezuelan chocolate, which is probably the best chocolate in the world. The region of Chihuahua, one of the few DOCs in the world for highest quality chocolate, which it goes perfect with any of our products. So
Great.
everybody pretty happy with single vintage.
Let's move on to number 6. I hate moving on from that one because I just want those flavors to remain. But yeah,
Numero
you mentioned chocolate. I love it. I'd say
numero
with
six.
whiskey, I do the 3 things that I love pairing whiskey with, the 3 chs: chocolate, cheese, charcuterie. So I'm sure it's going to be very similar with rum. Those like bites. Doing pairings, I don't need to do this with a big dish. To me, this is about bites: chocolate, cheeses, charcuterie. My favorite thing to do pairings with spirits across the board.
And I love
So,
cooking.
all right, we got our last one.
I love cooking with rum. I have like the whole Trader Vic cookery and romery book where I find many recipes, but banana rum cake, like
Of course.
it's so easy. Go to my Instagram, I'll show you how to make it in 10 minutes.
I'm
And
super common to
my
cook with.
favorite for those who have waffle makers, it's to like take some exclusiva, soak some golden raisins overnight, and then you use those raisins and make batter for waffle, and you make like rum raisin waffles, and it will change your life. So moving on to numero seis. Numero seis. Number six, it's literally like, yes, we showed you, we opened up the house and we show you the toolbox, how we do things. We show you how we, you know, break it down to the ingredients of, barbet, batch kettle, pot still. But now we have a unique opportunity of actually tasting um like this product that is like unaltered. This is aged for 12 years in bourbon, 100% of the Strataila still. This is aged for 12 years. Uh, Joins the cask at 65% alcohol, right? So our cask strength. And we finish this in 40-year-old barriques of Pedro Jimenez sherry cask. And this is bottled naturally at 47%. So if you do the math from 65 to 47, this is where we reach the plateau where this alcohol, this is where we stop at the 14 because it reached our uh, primo alcohol percentage, which is like 47. And this it doesn't have a drop of water. It doesn't have, so from 65 to 47, just Venezuelan climate, wood, and gorgeousness. I think this is a very, 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 very complex. And when we're talking about complexity, as we were mentioning at the beginning, this is going to ride your mouth for a long time. This is going to be a long wave. This is going to be, this is going to be, this is going to give you port right off the bat. But then so many things are going to happen with this 2 3 minute journey. And I think this is where I don't want to do the talking. I want you guys to do the talking, and I want you to do the talking with comments because this is the best that we have to show so far. And you tell me what you think, please.
I mean, yeah, throw the comments in there. I'm already seeing them to chocolate and dried fruit that Matthew's talking about. Like, you guys are enjoying this one. This sips like any XO cognac beyond. This is what this is going to drink like. This is doing the job of a cognac. This is your finest, and I'm talking about not your everyday lowers. This is the high end, top shelf. That's where this comes in. This is, you're getting the port wine, exactly, deep, rich caramel. The length on this one, this is lasting forever on the palate. I mean, it is evolving and moving. A lot of baking spice on this one. Really beautiful, bright cinnamon underneath that caramel, the raisin, obviously all those figs and dates, rich dried fruit coming through. PX is going to do that.
And
Wow.
I call this Mr. Problematico because this is Mr. Problematico because we only produce around 2,000 bottles. So whenever you could get your hands on a bottle, do it. I think like this is something. I launched this in 2014 and January, and in February, Wall Street Journal wrote that it was in the top 5 rums that they ever tasted. So this is, and when people tell me, oh, rum, I'm like, my rum is more whiskey than your whiskey. Like,
but I would say, this steps into the high end cognac realm. This steps into some of like the 40-year-old Armagnacs that I've tasted. This is comparable to that kind of flavor.
I'm there with you. I was with Marlon, the representative for White Mackay, and we actually tasted some eau-de-vies from. One was 1948, and the other one was like in 1941. Eau-de-vies, and which are Armagnac, but they couldn't at that time be called Armagnac because it wasn't set up as such.
Yeah.
And I do get qualities here with the spirit of that nature. So that tells you how special this alcohol is, and the unique opportunity that we have to taste collectively, and
Totally.
I'm like really really proud of you, and I cannot wait for these cocktails that we have moving forward. I have my ingredients and I have my glasses in the fridge, and I'm really excited.
Yeah,
And if you guys have
I hate
any,
to do it. We got to move on and make cocktails. Now, this is why there's a reason, my friends, why I told you do not pour the whole sample. I just poured a little bit. I am going to savor every drop of really the rest of these, but especially the last two. I'm going to come back and savor those later. But we got to make a cocktail now. And
yeah,
Manny, it has been so great to be able to do this. Stick around, please. If you guys have questions for Manny, please keep throwing them in the chat. But we are going to move on to our next phase. We got some great spirits to make cocktails with. Very special guest with me. Karl's going to be joining in a second. Now, I told you guys to throw your glass in the freezer. I did it myself. I'm actually going to turn off my camera. I'm going to reset and bring my bar out because I'm going to try to make these drinks along with Karl. A real mixologist versus a hack bartender like me. So with that, I'm going to turn off. Karl, I'm going to introduce you, bring you on here. We'll have our folks bring Karl in. So Karl, you stick around. Spirit and Spoon, it's good to see you, my friend. I'm going to turn off my camera for a second while I do a reset, and I'll be right back. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and talk about what we're going to do.
Awesome. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for the introduction, Josh. Manny absolutely crushed it. Great knowledge. I love rum. Rum's the first thing I drank when I was 21. I'm 44 now. I've been in the industry behind the stick bartending since I was 24. I'm in Los Angeles now. I've kind of done it all. I bartended, ran bar programs, consult. Now I do everything. I work with brands. But I love cocktails, and I love the ability to what a cocktail can do, because it's not about it's always about what's in the glass, but it's always about the experience we share when we have cocktails. So we're gonna be making some fun cocktails today. We're gonna do an old fashioned, which who doesn't love an old fashioned? We're gonna do it with this beautiful guy, aged 8 years. You got that plum, that vanilla, that oak. It's gonna taste delicious. Then we're gonna do a Sazerac, one of my all-time favorites. This is actually my new favorite drink with the Reserva. Delicious. So I'll let you guys grab your glasses. I'm gonna grab mine real quick. Then we're gonna start with the old fashioned. Josh's bar setup is making mine
I'm all set up right here.
His bar setup is making mine look horrible. I'm gonna let Josh take over for a second. I'm gonna go grab my glasses and we're gonna rock and roll.
We'll do it. I can see my glasses already frosting up. Now, the first one I know that we're gonna be doing is Karl's gonna lead us through it. We're gonna build it directly into the glass itself. The second one, we're gonna be stirring. So I've got a nice classic stirring vessel. If you guys just have a pint glass does the trick. That's gonna be perfect for stirring the drinks as well. So all of that is gonna be great. Whatever you have. And then I've got my nice giant beer stein for ice. This is ice, so I have been known to drink directly out of this thing in the past.
let me just mention while we are setting up that we are going to be tasting Mantuano with our cocktail. Mantuano, it's in our entry line, out of like classic line, it's our youngest dark rum. So this is aged for 8 years old. Our white is aged for 6, but out of the dark dry rums, Mantuano, it's very, very, very special. I think it's the most mixable of all of them. But before you make the cocktail, please try it neat and see that it's a really serious rum that you could find in the shelf for like under $30, like $25, and I think it's better than anything. It's a lot of times get overcasted by Reserva Exclusiva because it's so good, but I think Mantuano, it's a great alternative and a great rum. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, you got it. I'm actually just grabbing another glass to taste it myself before we pour it.
It's delicious. So that's number 7.
Yeah.
So with an old fashioned. Are we ready for me?
Let's do it, Karl. Cocktail time.
Yeah. Old fashioned is typically sugar cube, bitters, whiskey. That's it. Ice and literally orange flame or orange peel. So what we're going to do is we'll build it. So we're going to take a half ounce of the simple syrup. This is a measuring tool called the jigger. I'm not sure if all you guys have those. If you don't worry about it. Take the syrup down. Take about 2/3 of the syrup they give you. Pour it into the glass.
Now for me, I'm using like a heavy bar spoon for me. I don't know if that's a good approach. So if you guys have any of these fun tools, or about a teaspoon, really, it's just a teaspoon is all you need, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A teaspoon of simple syrup is basically 1 sugar cube.
Yeah. Traditionally, it's a sugar cube. Yeah. Once we got in there, we're going to add the bitters. Usually it's 3 dashes. We have a little dropper. Almost a full dropper is about what 3 dashes would be. So just drop it in there. And why we're doing this, when you build anything, any kind of cocktail, you want to use the less expensive ingredients first. So the star of the show is obviously the Diplomatico. Number 7, that actually is 2 ounces. So we're just gonna pour that right into there.
Exactly, to the top of the jigger.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And I like to build my old fashions just right over the ice cube. You're about to add the ice yourself, right?
Yeah. Add ice. And stir.
For me, I got 1 big sphere. It's from my Star Wars Death Star sphere mold.
Yeah.
I like old fashions with 1 big rock, but yeah, doing it with a bunch of good smaller ice cubes is totally fine.
Yeah. I have a big cube. I didn't want to be too fancy. I was like, do I use the big cube? I'm like, no.
No, you just have a 4-foot tall spoon. I've got that. I'm saving my giant spoon for the next drink. We're keeping them separate.
Well, if you don't have a spoon, and I know some of you guys don't, butter knife. Same thing.
Yeah, because you're just rotating the ice around, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's the thing. Then we're gonna finish it. I know they gave you the orange, dehydrated orange. Typically, you would do a zest. So you're gonna peel an orange from the top, kind of the way down. What you do is you kind of go over it and you're gonna squeeze it. And what that does is it releases the oils. Then you want to kind of bend it, then kind of go around the rim. That kind of gets all the oils around the rim. So when you do pick up the old fashioned, you're getting those oils. So you're getting that orange right away. But if you just have this, just put it in just like Josh did.
I don't think I have that, but I'm just dropping that right in. And it does, the dehydrated stuff I always liked out, but it does have an aroma to it, which is the key with the oils, right? Is that when you take your sip of your drink, do this with cocktails. I always recommend people at home, don't just go ahead and drink. Smell it first and then take a sip, because what you smell, what you taste are going to marry together and create a whole different experience.
Yeah. And that's my favorite thing about old fashioned is with the dilution of the ice, but your first sip is going to taste different than your last sip. And that's what I love about old fashioned. And you can get so playful with old fashions.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love this Diplomatico in it, and this actually makes a delicious Negroni. So Negroni is just equal parts rum, Campari, and sweet vermouth. So if you're getting playful and you pick up yourself a bottle, try a Negroni. It's literally like one of my favorite summer cocktails.
That's a great idea for that. Perfect concept. I mean that.
So
you got the Negroni with gin originally, the Boulevardier done with whiskey. Rum doesn't really have its own name the way Boulevardier does, so it's just a rum Negroni.
Yeah.
But that's it. Equal parts, 1 ounce, Campari and sweet vermouth, and that is delicious. This is a great old fashioned. I think to me, the rum old fashioned is one that I love making. It is, again, a great way to get a whiskey drinker appreciating the value of rum, that it's not just for your citrusy blended cocktails that so many people think about when they really haven't explored the depths of rum like we really get to do today. That rum, they've isolated rum into this one category of blended fruit cocktails. Now, don't get me wrong, the most perfect cocktail, in my opinion, is a proper daiquiri. And a real daiquiri is not the blended crap that you get on spring break in Cancun. A real daiquiri
it has strawberry.
Manny, what was it?
Yeah, strawberry. And it
Yeah,
comes
not
out
a strawberry daiquiri. No, a real proper daiquiri. Just fresh lime juice, good simple syrup or a demerara syrup, and a good quality rum, Manny. I mean, you tell me, of all of these, which of your rums do you think it makes your favorite daiquiri?
Josh, I will tell you, like, from inception, from this brand and from this city and with the background, uh, when I started repping this brand like over 10 years ago, I met this gentleman of which some of you will know. His name was Sasha Petrarski. Sasha loved the young Diplomaticos. We used to have a rum called Añejo, which it was a 4 year old that anywhere the Sasha opened, it will go into old fashioned. It was the first time, like one of the most emblematic restaurants in New York, Minetta Tavern, which has been open for. It was the first time that I got a cocktail placement, and it was actually a old fashioned over 10 years ago. And people like I think whiskeys make rye makes really good old fashions, but I think exclusiva uh, about $1 an ounce when you are running a program. It's pretty like no brainer. Like even if you are like running like any rye is gonna run you higher than that in the amount of flavor and pack and punch that you are getting with this 12-year-old rum. It's gonna over deliver, and I think this is where cocktails. I think like my favorite cocktail of all times with Exclusiva, it's just freezing coconut water. I just like take the cheap coconut waters, those Vita Coco, freeze
Yeah.
them sideways in the freezer, rock solid with a chef knife, score the cardboard, split it up. It looks like a big cube. The same chef knife cut through. I have two big blocks of coconut water ice. Put it there with a exclusiva. You little touch of chocolate bitters, and you probably have the best drink in the
I have
planet.
never even tried that, and I'm going to. I mean, I got some Aztec chocolate bitters right here. I've got some of the other mole bitters too that'll work. I am absolutely
Yeah.
going to do that. I can't believe I've never done that before.
I was thinking the same thing. There's no way I'm not doing that within the next 48 hours.
That's
I mean,
amazing. I am going to the bodega across the street from me, and I'm buying some of the coconut water. Right now.
Do it sideways because
Yeah.
the way that the minerals and the way the structure of the coconut water, if you do it upside down, like if you're doing standing up, the salts and the minerals are just gonna like it's gonna be sweeter. But if you do it sideways, it's gonna be even. So you're gonna have even flavor as it start. And very curious thing when you start actually tasting the drink, starts like sweet like an old fashioned. And as the ice starts melting, you start getting like more salty and mineral flavors.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to do that. I mean, I go to Costco and I buy those things by the case for summertime, those coconut waters. So yeah, I'm going to hit that up.
My point earlier, I love like the dilution of an old fashioned because it changes. Like your first sip is different than your last sip. And it's like, to me, that's the beauty of an old fashioned. It's like, give it a nice stir, but build it in the glass. So you don't over dilute it. And it's, to me, that's the beauty of an old fashioned. You can get so creative, with a cinnamon syrup or a chocolate bitters. Like it's the
for the fall maple syrup, like throw a cinnamon stick. Burn
maple
the cinnamon
syrup,
stick.
exactly.
Burn the cinnamon stick. As well, like if you don't have a peeler, feel free to just like cut like the size of like a silver dollar out of an orange, or if you don't have a peeler, with a knife. So like a coin, and that coin you actually could squeeze it on the glass and express it as well. If you have a peeler, perfect. But if you don't, with a regular kitchen knife, very carefully, making sure you preserve all your digits.
We don't encourage you to practice doing something brand new with a knife after tasting through 6 different rums and drinking a cocktail. So just to be clear, we encourage you to do this maybe tomorrow, but that is an option if you don't have a peeler. Now, the next drink that we're going to make here is a variation of an old fashioned. It's another style of old fashioned. I have never done this drink with rum. This is one of my favorite cocktails in the world, so it's hard for me to even consider doing it with rum. I judge bartenders on 2 cocktails. One is the daiquiri that I mentioned before. Can you make the perfect balanced daiquiri? That's number 1. Number 2 is a Sazerac. And the Sazerac, with its deep history, Karl, I want you to talk about the Sazerac, but what we're doing to it that's different here, because I am a purist, but of course, there's always an argument, no matter what, with this drink.
The Sazerac is one of my favorite cocktails. It dates back to like 1880, New Orleans. It's actually named after the cognac that they used to make it. They say, obviously with cocktail history, there's always a bunch of like purists, but they say it's one of the oldest known American cocktails. It's absolutely one of my favorite cocktails. And I made this the other day and I was blown away. I love the Sazerac. I love this version better. So we'll jump into it. Obviously, you start with a frosty glass. We've been chatting, so our glass is probably still frosted. But like, when you make it, like I always keep glasses in my freezer just so I have. When I'm making a Sazerac, it has to be right. So,
Josh, whoever the team did this pipette and was able to seal it and have absinthe here, I wanna like hug you from the bottom of my heart.
Our Whiskeys of the World team agency,
brilliant. This is
a part of this.
Brilliant.
I had no idea when I opened the can. I'm like, oh, there's the absinthe. It's perfect.
Never seen it before, but it's brilliant. This is amazing. Whoever did this, if you're not here, like I love you. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Absinthe, you're gonna take it and you're gonna put it in the glass.
Gotta break it open. I'm gonna
break it open. I used I brought scissors. But break it open.
I do have scissors.
Drop it in the glass.
I have scissors behind me. All right.
After you bit into it, yeah.
I didn't fully bite into it yet. So there we go.
And what you want to do is once it's in the glass,
just gonna grab my own.
Once it's in the glass, you want to kind of swirl it around. Sometimes you can just make sure the glass is coated. There's a couple of schools of thought here. Like you can, if there's too much, obviously there's not too much here. Sometimes people just rinse it and dump it out. I like keeping a little bit of the absinthe in there. I just love absinthe. So just kind of keep it in there, swirl around. So while this sits in there, we're gonna build a cocktail.
So if this wasn't my living room and I was actually behind a bar, I often do a thing where I throw the glass and spin it like that, which I just did, which gets it nice and coated, and I don't mind if a little drops. But this is actually a perfect amount to get the coating and not too much left over. Yeah. Otherwise, I make sure I drink the extra absinthe.
I was just gonna say that. Like Karl just like 2 points when he said dumping absinthe. That was like that's unacceptable in my book.
Yeah, he poured out good absinthe, but this is a perfect amount right there. All right, Karl, what's next?
So we're gonna take this one. We're using number 8. So traditionally it would be kind of the same build as the old-fashioned half-ounce simple syrup, 2 ounces, but we're just going to use the rest of the simple syrup, which should be about a 1/4 ounce. We're going to do another little dropper of bitters.
Now, why don't you talk? Can you talk for a second about the bitters in the Sazerac? Because I'm gonna use the traditional bitters for a Sazerac because I really want to know. I've got my Peychauds here.
Yeah. Peychaud bitters is the bitters that's used. It's definitely, if you ever go to New Orleans, like the Sazerac in 2000, I believe 8 was named the cocktail of the state. I mean, the Sazerac is no joke out there. So Peychaud bitters is going to change a little bit. Obviously, with these kits, we can't send everything, so they sent you the Scrappy's aromatic. But traditionally, it's Peychaud bitters. I tried it both ways, both delicious, but yeah.
So the Scrappy's aromatic, actually, I think this is actually a great middle. It sits in between Angostura and Peychaud's in a way. Angostura has a little more of the tannic bark note that you get. That's known, the classic aromatic bitters. This is the one you see on every bar, right? For most old fashions. All bitters brands have their own variation of it. And I think the Scrappy's aromatic brings in a little more of the floral element that kind of separates Peychaud's. Peychaud's, Arnaud Peychaud was a, medicinal, right? He was a, what's the term I'm looking for? But he had a pharmacy. He was a pharmacist. And that's where bitters were made by pharmacists in the 1800s. And that's why this at the Sazerac Cafe was used as the Creole bitters, a little more of like a black cherry floral note than the other more bark spice forward aromatic bitters.
And in
but the
lieu of
scrappies that you got really fits kind of in between. So it does a good job in both for sure.
in lieu of history, Josh, when we talk about Angostura, which is probably the best known bitters in the world, was actually Angostura is a town of Venezuela. Now they are made somewhere else, but it was a town in Venezuela, and it was actually, this formula was developed for the Simón Bolívar's army to drop 40 droplets in a canteen to make potable water. So like very tasty water to prevent them from malaria. And so it was.
That's cool. That I didn't know. I only know from Trinidad, which is where it's made now, as that kind of home base. But as a Venezuelan base, that's really cool. I did not know that.
It's a Venezuelan product. Angostura is a town in Venezuela. So it was like first developed there, and then they moved their operations to Trinidad in probably like late 80s. But the original bottles of Angostura were from Venezuela.
Cool. We're going to add the, obviously, number 8 all the way in. It's 1.25 ounces. Add ice. And what Josh is doing, he's just stirring it up. So obviously we have mixing glasses, but like a pint glass would completely work.
Oh, wait, I want to use my tall spoon like you.
You want to give it a healthy
any kind of glass is going to do the trick. I mean, when I started bartending, we didn't have fancy glasses. It was pint glasses for everything.
Oh yeah,
so use a pint glass. Use a mason jar. I even do, and even if you don't have shaker tins, a mason jar and a lid will do the exact same job a shaker tin will do at home. So
absolutely, you can make a cocktail anywhere. Give it a healthy stir, then we're going to strain right into the glass.
So the absinthe has coated the glass. This is again where those aromatics really are important, right?
100%. We're
going to do my lemon.
We're going to do the lemon wheel, or if you have a peeler like Josh does, we're going to do a quick nice little peel, express over.
All right. So, I mean, we're not going to go into the debate on this one, though. For my Sazerac, I am in express and discard. That is my camp of Sazerac.
I'm 100% same boat.
Get the coat, get the oils on top, and then don't put it in.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, you guys. Get that. Remember, smell it first. Now you're getting those the licorice and all the anise seed, all those beautiful notes of the absinthe, the lemon oils. That should hit you first. Then you follow it.
And you get that toffee fudge that's just so undeniable on this 12 year. It's so good. It's so good, right?
That is so different. So I have to debate. I debate. I am from the camp of like rye whiskey is my Sazerac. I know people want to argue about cognac, and I do like a cognac Sazerac, but for me, I just lean towards rye because I love this balance of the spice, the sweet, the floral, all those things. To me, that's my Sazerac is a rye Sazerac. The cognac one is nice because it softens it. I've done the split base one, kind of the Vauqueré camp, half rye, half cognac, and then do the Sazerac blend. This is so different. That caramel, that rich, sweet chocolate, milk chocolate now, not the dark chocolate we got before, but like a milk chocolate caramel. It's like Milk Duds candies with this little floral spice note on top. That is so different. It's so honestly, good. if I'm in the movies and I took a handful of gummy bears and Milk Duds at the same time, that's kind of what's happening right here.
Yeah. And Josh's bitters are going to change it a little bit.
That's my own thing, yeah. That's true. I forgot the gummy bears are coming from the Peychaud. I'm going to go and add a drop of Scrappies in there to see what happens.
That's the beautiful thing about cocktails is like once you know the like to me, this is the most important bar tool there is the jigger. And the second is your creativity. So whatever if you find a bitters that you like, or you use syrup or maple, or like anything you want, as long as you know the recipe, you can get creative. And like we were talking last week, I was with a friend, and I'm like, this Sazerac with the Diplomatico is like seriously my new favorite cocktail. I literally had friends over there tonight, and I made a round, and they're like, holy moly, this is delicious. Like it's one of those things where I like Josh, like I didn't think to do
I'm
it.
genuinely blown away right now.
Yeah, it's so good, right?
I would have never again, I'm such a purist when it comes to some drinks, and with so many other things, I'm like, I don't care, just do whatever you want to it. But I'm like, no, the Sazerac is the Sazerac, and this is the way that I do it, period. And you guys have just ruined me for that. I'm genuinely shocked at how amazing this thing is drinking right here. I mean, again, I prefer the rye to the cognac one, but I'm not going to say that this is better than a rye Sazerac because I'm way too stubborn. But I will put this above a cognac Sazerac very readily right now. This is a really good drink.
Yeah, this rum actually works really well in a Manhattan, which is vermouth and bitters.
Yeah.
So like if you love a Manhattan, try it with this rum. It's completely amazing.
Yeah, I'm just trying to read. My computer's farther away from me. I'm trying to see if there are any questions from y'all right now, because we definitely have, just about a minute or two left. We're a little bit over, but I'm actually quite impressed that we've done a good job keeping it pretty close to our time limit. You guys are just hearing, three booze industry people gushing over something that is hopefully you're enjoying it. But this is a really good cocktail. I'm genuinely surprised. I thought it'd be like, oh yeah, this is nice little substitute here. I've done rum old fashions before. I've never ever thought about doing it in this variation, and it is I'm shocked by it. Manhattan, I love doing rum Manhattans. Great other variation as well. So let me see. Done a Sazerac at Commander's Palace, of course. Yeah, I mean, this is, a lot of the Sazeracs you get in New Orleans itself have been a little, let's say, diluted for the masses in a lot of ways. So,
I'll say I've been there. And I've been to the Bar Sazerac. And I'm like, oh,
Well, and that was actually the thing. I will say this: Bar Sazerac for a long time that is not a good Sazerac. They have a new bar manager that from a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago now. Well, it was pre-pandemic, so I still, when I say last year in my head, I'm still saying 2019. So that's a problem with time right now. But a couple of years ago, new bar management, and they've really revived it, and they're taking the cocktails more seriously. So the Sazerac bar in the Roosevelt Hotel is doing a better job right now. Few others, great bars in New Orleans where you can get it done right. I actually just learned that Tales of the Cocktail is actually happening, and I didn't realize that. So I got to figure out if I can do it.
Is it happening this year?
It is. They're doing it in September. So I just learned this yesterday, and I'm like, I don't even know if I can make it, but they're actually doing it. We're gonna take that conversation offline. If you guys have any other questions, let me see, Charles. What absinthe did we get with this? I actually don't know, and that is a good question. As far as absinthe, there are so many wonderful ones out there. Like the original recipe of Pernod using the original recipe absinthe. Verte is great. You want to use great American absinthe. St. George is absolutely one of my favorites. The first legal American absinthe being made. There are a ton of really good ones. Here's a great question. We actually talked a little bit about this at the very beginning, but we didn't go into detail. The difference in rum and rum with an H, which really refers to agricole. We were talking about the DOC, the denominations of origin, how only Venezuela and Martinique are the only countries that have a denomination of origin. Manny, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, when used, the word itself, when it's used in Spanish, it's RON, in English is ROM, and when you are referring to French rum, it's with an H in between, but it's that in referring to, it could be as well when you see bottles of, let's say, Diplomatico in Europe, you're gonna see them with the RUM, but in the States, when you see a bottle that it has like RHUM, 99% it's safe to say that it comes the from Martinique, from the French colony of Martinique, where they have the French demarcation to making rum, the DOC.
So there you go. That's it. The RHUM refers to a rum agricole, where it's only from fresh pressed cane and not from molasses or the rum honey that we've been talking about. And that is their distinct style. So if you taste those, if you've ever like bit into a sugar cane, you get that really grassy kind of flavor. So those rums will get that really earthy, grassy, different from the rums that we know now that are going to carry more of that caramel, well-rounded vanillas and caramel freshness that you've been tasting here. So, so there's a lot of good absinthe out there. I encourage everybody to try as much absinthe as you possibly can. I'm a huge absinthe fan. So, any other questions? Because we're getting towards the end. And I do want to let you guys know, once again, a big reminder, everything that you tasted here today is available for purchase at reservebar.com. And we do have a special promo code for you, Diplomatico. That's it. Capital letters, Diplomatico. That will get you free shipping. So that's a pretty good deal right now when places do charge for shipping. So you can even, on the reservebar.com, they've got a cool deal where you can get the bottles custom engraved as well. So that is pretty sweet. We're going to get that feature put in the chat. You can see right there. If there are any other questions, right there, yep. Appreciate all of you guys coming in and participating, a handful of you being a part of this. To Manny, to Karl, thank both of you so much. Your headache went away the last 2 days. All right, well, I make no promises about tomorrow's headache, so we are not responsible for that one. Oh, one final thing. We had 6 amazing rums that you tasted today. We want to know what was your favorite. So let's take a minute right now. We're going to pop a poll right up here on the screen. Let's get that up there and have you guys vote on what your favorite rum of the day was. We had some great ones. Everyone was unique. They were all so different. But let's see what everybody's, we're going to take another minute there.
Sweet.
Clock is going. So 1 minute to vote. You guys are all, the votes are pouring in.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
They were all so good. I'm torn, but I have a feeling, I think I know what the winner might be.
Sure. I mean, Karl, what was your favorite?
I mean, 6 or 2. I mean, I love them all, but like, yeah.
All right. Well, there we go. They're coming in. We got about 15 seconds left. 15 seconds left for the poll. Get your votes in if you are on.
The batch kettle is getting no love. I love it. I don't love it, but like, yeah.
It's weird because I love it. I will tell you this, at Wingtip, at the bar that I was running, before COVID hit, that batch 1, we went through a lot of that. So batch number 1, the distillery collection, that was one of the more popular rums that we had at the bar. All right, well, so based on the votes, we're not surprised that the Ambassador was number 1 with 39% of the vote, followed by Single Vintage 2005. But of the other ones right there, the Reserva Exclusiva, which is their go-to blend, that beautiful blend was hugely popular. I love the unique ones, the different distillery collections, because of how they highlight different elements of what this really incredible distillery produces. But
I always
the Ambassador was not that far ahead of the Single Vintage. That's a lot closer than I thought. Manny, what do you think?
I think because they don't know the price, but I think if I could drink.
Oh, we put the price in there. We know what the price is.
Okay, so but I think like I would rather drink a case of Exclusiva than a bottle of Ambassador.
So when you're talking about, so let's talk about that whole value, right? Like, what is the Ambassador is great, but I can't sit and, you know, power that back over a night. That's going to be pretty pricey if I can find that one. Same thing with the other, but the Exclusiva, that's a great everyday rum.
Yeah, that you could, you know, make yourself, you know, a daiquiri, that you could make yourself an old fashioned, that you could do a little banana rum, that you could do, you know, banana like rum raisin waffles. Like I think like I am like, you know, very biased with single vintage.
Sure.
Very biased with sorry, with exclusiva. So
Yeah,
I
definitely.
I love exclusiva.
No, these are, I mean, it's a fantastic one. And really what we learned is that everything was a great experience for people tonight. And I saw some of the comments going by, you know, people who had really not had a chance and not had an opportunity to dive into rum as a sipping spirit and looked at it from this perspective and being able to enjoy it. I think their eyes are very much open. And I'm personally very grateful for this experience. It's really cool for us at Whiskeys of the World to be able to expand beyond whiskey. This is the perfect way to do it. Having Manny, having you here, your expertise, and with this fantastic brand, being able to share your story, share these products with us has been invaluable. Karl, so great to see you, my friend, and have you here. Do you recognize this shirt? We're not going to talk about the time, but Karl is fantastic. Detroit has given us great music, has given us muscle cars, and has given us my friend Karl as well. So it is great to have you here, my friend.
Speaking of which, to end with, I was speaking with Donnie Ronan today. Shout out to him.
Donnie has been on this, yeah.
I'm in Detroit consulting on a project next month. Y'all should come out.
All right.
I'm just saying that.
All right. I need to make my way back to Detroit. It's been a couple years and I love that town. So thank you both so much for being here today. For everybody at home, don't forget, I mentioned it earlier on, we have a very special offer for all of our Wow Them at Home attendees. If with using the promo code Cheers20, that gets you 20% off, $20 off, I should say, $65 instead of $85 for the following tastings we have coming up: the July 22nd experience, August 12th rum experience as well, and a peated whiskey experience coming up on August 26th. That promo code is good for 24 hours, so please sign up on whiskeysoftheworld.com and use the promo code Cheers20 for that $20 off. Again, finally, thank you again, Manny, Karl, for all of you attending here, making this such a special event here today. Happy Father's Day to all of you. Please come and see us at the live events. Those are coming up as well. whiskeysoftheworld.com. We've got all the information and tickets for sale at our live events. We want to see you in person. We're going to shake hands and give hugs and do all the things we haven't been able to do over the last 15 to 17 months. But again, go to Reserve Bar and use that code Diplomatico to purchase everything that you tasted here tonight. Once again, hope to see you again soon. We love having you with us. Please stay safe out there, my friends. We will see you at the next event. Cheers.
Josh, I'll see you soon. Cheers. Thank you, Karl. Thank you, everybody. Drink some Diplo.
Definitely. Save it at number 6.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Josh. Cheers.